Welcome back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. The last Jon Krawczynski Show was live at Head Flyer Brewing with Timberwolves lead assistant Micah Nori. He was an absolute blast. The crowd was a blast. It's always a great time there. Big crowd. Lots of fun. Thanks to Jon for making that all happen. Thanks to Head Flyer for always being such a great partner of ours. You can check that out at talknorth.com. And today we have Jon himself, who just back from Dallas. We're going to get to his conversation with Anthony Edwards after that game. A lot to get to today. A lot of developments for the Timberwolves. Reminder, we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we're presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Also want to reintroduce our new Vice President of Business Development, Tammy Henderson, who was at the show last week, and it's just going to be a blast to work with as we continue to develop talknorth.com and continue to popularize the Jon Krawczynski Show. Not that he needs much help. All right, before we get to everything else, tell me about being in Dallas and your conversation with Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Jim, it was like, so I initially was not planning on going to Dallas. I'm going to be in Detroit and Philadelphia. I'm going to be in a lot of these road trips down the stretch, but that one looked like an easy one to take off because Dallas is terrible and what were we really going to learn? But as the weekend kind of unfolded, it became clear that Anthony Edwards was going to return for that game. And given that we haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks and how important he is to everything that is happening here in Timberwolves land, I just kind of decided to get down there and check it out. And it was a trip that was incredibly worthwhile in the end because not only did we get to watch, up close Anthony Edwards kind of start to get back into the swing of things on the court. It was interesting to me. I thought that, he was on kind of a minutes restriction as they're easing him back in. And, but he played very, very well against a team that is terrible. So it was a really good tune-up. But even more valuable, I thought, was being able to talk to him after the game. And just, it really stuck out to me how thoughtful he was about how he used his time away while he was injured. And, he mentioned to me that he spent the 2 weeks while he was rehabbing, really, really watching the team and kind of considering it from another angle on exactly how he could fit in and how he could help this team going forward. And I think prior to his injury, there had gotten to be a little bit of not frustration, but certainly like I'm not even sure how to describe it. I would say like there was a consistent level of stagnancy in the offense that would happen when either Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle would go ISO. And I think that both of them went ISO because some of the other guys were not in great rhythms and weren't shooting well. And so they felt like a responsibility to take more on their shoulders. And when Ant went out and started watching how this team played without him, even though they did not play very good in the half-court offense and struggled offensively, they played really well defensively, but I think he saw how the ball moved and how other guys were getting involved. And he said to me, it's just like, that really helps me understand what this team needs from me and what I need to do coming back into the fold here. And I think that, I asked him like what specifically stood out. He didn't want to say specifics because he didn't want to give anything away or have it misconstrued. But in our conversation as it went forward, I think two things really stood out. One is that he understands that he's got to make quicker decisions with the ball. And whether that is looking for his own shot or getting the ball moving and getting to other people, I think that he is going to focus more on not sort of occupying the entire possession, except for maybe late in games when you really need a shot. The second thing that was really interesting to me was that he watched Ayo Dosunmu and Bones Highland play. And he started to talk about how those two are more real point guards or closer to what point guards do in the offense than he is. And he really believes that those two guys can take some of the pressure off of him from a playmaking and ball handling standpoint, and that he can be a little more off the ball and use that to his advantage as well. And so when you look at those two elements, if you want to be optimistic about what the Wolves' chances are, if Anthony Edwards can find that rhythm and that comfort, and then also if Bones Highland and Ayo Dosunmu prove to be fully capable of taking some of the lead guard pressures off of him, I think that is the best way forward for this team to become really difficult to deal with offensively in the playoffs. And so I just really found it interesting to hear him talk about that. And, I mentioned to him and he agreed that it felt similar to what last year when Julius Randle was out for a long time, watched the team, came back and played with a little bit different approach, and they won 17-4 down the stretch, and things really worked out. So we'll see if that all clicks into the same place, but I just found it really illuminating the perspective that Anthony Edwards was bringing and that he gained from that time away over these previous 2 weeks.
I don't want to be rude, but I have to ask, was he a couple of minutes late for the interview?
He was not late for the interview. He was right there and ready to go. But yes, the is unfortunate timing of the bowel movements coming to him right before the game, and so he was late getting out there. It reminded me, I've seen the movie Creed, one of my favorites, and Michael B. Jordan is getting ready for a big fight, and then he has to have his gloves cut off because he has to take a dump. And I think that Ant might have gotten a little too tuned up and too excited to get back out on that court, and misjudged the timing that he had and how long it would take. And hey, we've all been there before, I think, right, Jim?
I don't want to talk about this much, but the one thing it makes me curious about is, is he like the only athlete who has this problem?
It's a good question. I mean, it has happened one other time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm willing to give this one just a little bit of a slide. Who knows? It just could have been one of those crazy emergency situations.
Sure.
But I do think that also his pregame routine is generally that he is off of the court and not really involved in pregame introductions and any of that stuff. He's going through all of his, kind of calisthenics, all of his whatever routine it is to get himself in the right mindset and physically ready to play. And I do think he does play with fire a little bit with that routine where he is not out there during the pregame theatrics and all that. And so it does open the door for him to be late. And so it may require a bit of an examination of what he's doing before the game, and not just, going number 2, but everything else that is involved in his pregame routine, because there have been a few times now where he's been late getting out onto the court, and I think that it doesn't need to be that way, is what I would say.
Let's never speak of this again.
Please. Yeah.
Let's move on. The thing that jumped out at me about your conversation with Anthony is, last year, especially after they beat Golden State, Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo talked at length about how being injured, sitting on the sideline next to each other, watching the way the Wolves played without them was kind of the key to them incorporating their games and getting that team up to speed and winning in the playoffs. It's just fascinating that sometimes, team sports are weird. I mean, they're fascinating. But they're also strange. It's a world of unintended consequences and unintended benefits. And you just want it. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if being out with an injury for a little bit might not be the key to Anthony Edwards' growth.
Yeah, I think it's very possible, and we've seen many instances of it before, including the ones that you mentioned. I do think that there's 2 things that can happen for an absence like this to be more productive than damaging. And one thing is that this is a very long, grueling season, and even when you are hurt, the ability to physically recharge for a couple of weeks can be important. I do think that one of the issues that we're running into with Julius Randle's inconsistent play is that he's played in every single game.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is a physical toll that takes on the body, that also takes on the mind, that can play with you a little bit and can be a struggle to overcome. And so I think that it's possible that, Julius last year and now this year comes back a little refreshed from a mental and physical standpoint. And so he's a little more locked in. The other thing that I think worked well in this instance is that while Ant was out, the team went 4-2. They did not go 1-5. And so when Anthony comes back to a team that is playing relatively well, he has more of a mindset of, how do I keep this going? And how do I fit myself into this to help us take to another level? Versus if they were really, really struggling, he would come back and say, how do I save this myself? When I went out, everything fell apart. And so now I have to rescue this team and put it on my back and carry it forward. Well, he saw that this team had the number one defense in the league since he went out. And so maybe it clicks in his head, all right, I've got to lock in here. I've got to be part of the solution because I can't let that slip. And then he also saw that Dante DiVincenzo was in a little better rhythm, that Jaden McDaniels was playing really well before he got hurt, that Bones Highland was playing well and was in a groove. And so I think that when he comes back to a team that has a little bit of something going, then it's a little bit more of a compromise of how do I meet these guys in the middle, which is, I think, really, really good. I think that this team is at its best when everyone is involved, and when Ant is using his gravity to create for others versus using his gravity to overpower and overwhelm. And so those two elements mixed together, I think, kind of lay the groundwork for the possibility that this is going to really be helpful in the long run, both for Anthony Edwards individually and for this team collectively.
Yeah, well said. More to get to. Let's talk about Jaden McDaniels, his timeline and the effect of his injury on this team. First, though, I want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Is your water leaving white scale, smelling funky, or making you a bit suspicious of what's in it? One call to Aquarius Home Services, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer, means worry-free water for your home and family. Schedule your free water test today and experience the Connecticut difference for just $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Aquarius Home Services. One call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at aquariushomeservices.com.
And we'd like to thank Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
2 very interesting developments. Jaden McDaniels having his best year as a pro, injures his knee, and while he's out, Ayo Dosunmu absolutely takes over and plays one of the great games you'll see in the NBA.
Yeah, let's start with Jaden,
Yes.
and we'll get to Ayo. But so Jaden was starting to play really well before he got hurt as well. He played great in the Houston game. He really made things difficult on Kevin Durant. Had an unbelievable kind of flurry where hits a 3, gets a steal, dunk, and really kind of got them going. And then hurts his knee, has a bone bruise in his knee, which is it's a painful injury to deal with. I've seen kind of amateur doctors out there on Twitter and stuff really worrying about him being ready for the playoffs or, maybe even needing to kind of come in the middle of round 1 or something like that. And what I can tell you from everyone I spoke to in Dallas, around Jaden McDaniels, around the team, there is a belief that he will be back before the playoffs begin. We will see the timeline exactly. He's listed as week to week. I think they've been intentionally vague about that just to give him enough time to kind of work through and go through the rehab and come back on his own accord. But he obviously will not be playing on this road trip. It probably won't be playing for much of next week. The season is coming down to the final, couple of weeks here. But I really do believe that from everything I'm told that there's a viable scenario where he's back with a game or two left in the regular season to use to kind of tune up a little bit. And then you get another week off before the playoffs, assuming you're a top 6 team, which looks like it's going to be. And then he will be able to kind of practice and get back ready to go in round 1. And so obviously things can go wrong between now and then, and that window could lengthen. But everything that I've heard so far is that Jaden McDaniels will be on the shorter end of the recovery window and will be back in time for the playoffs.
Well, that's a big deal. And now to Ayo, just a great game in Dallas. Really impressive how he's able to rebound from the guard spot. He basically was a point guard. He led the break beautifully. He finished on the break. He shoots the 3 well. He gets after defensively. Just continuing to impress lately.
Yeah, it's, he misses 2 games with the calf injury and then comes back and is better than he's ever been for the Wolves, at least. I thought that was incredibly impressive. And I thought that the most impressive thing to me about his performance against Dallas was he understood the assignment, essentially, in that he was able to do 2 things. And with Jaden McDaniels out, he knew that he had to play defense and rebound. I know Jaden doesn't rebound a whole lot, but I think that he understood that he could be really effective in that area. And then also being closer to a point guard than a shooting guard is really important for what this team needs right now. He talked to me after the game about wanting to make things easier for Anthony Edwards. And he said, look, Ant's a superstar. He's got all of the attention on him all the time. And so he's going to take and make tough shots. That's what he does. That's part of his role. That's all great. But what I need to do is get him easy buckets as well. And not every shot that Ant takes needs to be a really difficult, make in traffic, contested, all those things. And so, he kind of was smiling as he said it because, we both know and everyone knows that Anthony Edwards typically doesn't like to play super fast. But Ayo said, look, I'm going to keep running and he's going to have no choice but to run with me. And then he's going to see when he does run with me how much easier that it is to get buckets in transition. And we saw a couple of those against Dallas. But the way that he looked at all the boxes that needed to be checked on this team with Jaden McDaniels out, with Ant coming back and all that, and saying, I'm just going to check all of them myself. And he did it. I think that it was incredibly impressive. And I know that, some people are looking at the numbers that Leonard Miller is putting up in Chicago, or they see Rob Dillingham make a few shots every once in a while for them and say, well, what are we doing? Ayo Dosunmu is the perfect player for this team for this time. And he is going to have a huge role going down the stretch and into the playoffs and going forward. And another Tim Connelly in-season trade that just looks to be exactly what they needed at exactly the right time. So he looks great, and it's really good to have him back as much as it is really good to have Anthony Edwards back.
Also, what I love, listen, you're a beat writer. I've been a beat writer. We're both journalists. We love information. I just love that neither Ayo nor I don't believe, unless I missed it, Kyle Anderson were like part of the rumor mill of people the Wolves are going to go get, and all of a sudden, bang, they're here. And then you look at them play and you go, oh, that works. That speaks so highly of Connelly. And listen, he missed on Dillingham. Maybe Dillingham becomes a really good player in this league. That's still possible. But for him to finally have an obvious miss and then turn it into a strength that quickly is so impressive.
Yeah, I think like that's the key to Tim Connelly and his success is that he does it without ego in the way what I mean by that is like there are a lot of front office people in the league, past and present. I've covered them, I've talked to them, all that will take a player like Rob Dillingham and will say, I invested a lot to get this. I need this to work out for me, or else I'm going to look bad if it doesn't. And we trade him away or whatever. And I am with you, Jim. Like, I do think that there's a pathway for Rob Dillingham to have a good career in this league and to be effective, but it wasn't going to happen here. And so what Tim Connelly does is he makes decisions much quicker when things are not working out than a lot of GMs would in service of chasing a desire to look smart or to look right. And so Tim looked at this and said, hey, it's not going to work here. So let me go and pivot to something that will work or have a chance to work. And Ayo Dosunmu, to his credit, was a great scout, and like they looked at him and yes, great fit, perfect, made it happen, and got him in. Same with Kyle Anderson in a little way, in some ways, where at the end of Kyle Anderson's first run here, like they couldn't afford to keep him. I think that Tim thought, I'll get Joe Ingles in here and he'll be Kyle Anderson light, or at least offensively will really work out. And that hasn't worked out. And so, you know what? I'm going to go back and get Kyle Anderson again. And yeah, he hasn't played well. He didn't play much in Utah. He didn't play didn't play much in Golden State. Played some in Miami in the interim these last couple of years. But he fits really well with what we're doing, and Chris Finch trusts him. So I'm going to go get him and bring him in, and then I'm going to empower Chris Finch to say, yeah, play this guy who is a veteran minimum dude over Terrence Shannon Jr., over some of our younger guys, because this is what we need right now and this is what will work. And so that flexibility and that willingness to recognize what is and isn't working, and not being worried about how it quote unquote makes you look if by making these changes, like that's a superpower for Tim Connelly. And it may sound simple and it may sound straightforward, but it is not. Like, there are a lot of guys who will kind of go down with the ship. And the other one is like the D'Angelo Russell trade was also, he did not bring D'Angelo Russell in, but D'Angelo Russell was a high profile player here,
who was shooting great at the time.
Yeah,
by the way.
Made a lot of money, all of that stuff, and he traded for a older point guard and a throw-in wing guard, and did it that way because he thought it would work and fit better. So his willingness to take risks and make big moves and do things that might backfire or might not, is one of the big reasons why he is one of the best GMs in the league.
And one of the reasons we have a rumor to talk about here in a second. But first, let us thank TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time. We had Mike and Nori on John's show last week at Head Flyer Brewing. That show has been released earlier this week. And, I asked Mike and Nori about the pressure of working with an Oscar Award winner like Steve Terry. And I don't know, Mike seemed a little intimidated by Terry's aura, so he didn't really want to get into it much, but we know what it's like. But Reminder, if you're ever injured, call 612-TSR-TIME. This is the serious part. We don't want you to need their help, but if you do need that kind of help, you're going to want them. 612-TSR-TIME, TSR Injury Law. Great people doing great things for people who need that particular kind of help. Now let's hear more about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com. Tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you. If you're watching this on YouTube, you are seeing no glasses. I haven't had contacts for a while now either. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of my surgery, my LASIK surgery with True Vision, and I still see perfectly. I can read up close. I can see far away while I'm driving, while I'm traveling. It makes life just so much easier. And I've said it before, but I can't say it enough. The people at True Vision just help get you through this process so quickly, so easily. They educate you, they take care of you, and they make sure you're in the right position coming in and then going out. And it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself is to go to True Vision, get the LASIK surgery, and make life just so much easier. And once you go in and you do the same thing, you will be kicking yourself and saying, why did I not do this 10 years ago? So go to truevision.com, set up your free consultation, go to the offices in Bloomington, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, and get on with living your life in a convenient, easy, clear way.
All right, so apparently there's a rumor that Dallas might be interested in Tim Connelly to go down there and work with Ethan Casson and run the Mavericks. So what are you hearing on that front?
Yeah, so firstly, to put it into all the context, because of the success that Tim Connelly has had in Denver and in Minnesota, any group, ownership group that wants to make a big splash is going to have Tim Connelly on their list of targets. It's going to be guys like Tim Connelly, Masai Ujiri, Bob Myers, like a bunch of like the big names that gets people's attention. If you're going after Tim Connelly, if you're going after Bob Myers and Masai Ujiri, these guys, you mean business. Like that's the message that's going on. The ownership group in Dallas that went through the very ugly Luka Doncic trade and like is trying to kind of scratch back some credibility within the league or within their fan base. Like you put stuff out like this, like, yeah, like, okay, they mean business. They're going for it. They're trying to stabilize things. Ethan Casson has a very good relationship with Tim Connelly, so it makes sense that they would be interested in him. My sense right now is like this is all just sort of very early stages, like identifying targets and candidates. Tim Connelly does have another year left on his deal. I do expect that the Timberwolves will look to reach some kind of contract extensions with him and keep him here. Remember that Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry wanted to make their own big splash, and so they went and got Tim Connelly. He is one of the very biggest wins they have had in their tenure here, next to the arbitration that they actually gave them the team. Tim Connelly is the best move that they've made. And so I'm sure that they will have all the conversations that they need to try to keep him here. I don't think that there's anything sort of imminent that Wolves fans need to worry about or anything like that. I don't think that I know that nothing has reached any kind of actual substantive conversations with the Mavericks or any other team that might have an opening. But Wolves fans just have to be used to hearing his name circulated in these types of analyses and rumors and things like that, because he is one of the best in the league at what he does. And his long-term contract situation has yet to be addressed by the Timberwolves. If they do that, all of that will go away, and it's a very real possibility. But right now, it's just kind of all speculation and talk, and I don't think that there's any real momentum going that way. We'll see, though. I mean, the Dumont family and the Adelsons, they have billions of dollars to throw around and try and entice people. I think other teams that will have openings will have vast resources themselves, but I don't know that it's about just money for Tim Connelly. I think it's about fit. It's about where he's comfortable with his family. All of those things will factor in. So I'm not like immediately concerned that he is on his way out, but it'll just be something to monitor as we get into the off season and the summers and just see if Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry can lock him down with a long-term deal.
Naz got it going against Dallas the other night. Could it be as simple as him having a good offensive night against a bad team? Even some of it in garbage time can get him going.
Well, I think that's the key, Jim, is that he got it going in garbage time. One thing that I thought was really smart by Ayo Dosunmu was like when the game was fully in control, you could tell that Ayo went into a mode of I got to get Naz some shots, because I'll tell you, like the first 3 quarters of that game, Naz did not seem to be mentally engaged in that thing. And there was some, it wasn't moping, but it was certainly not good energy, not good body language on his part. And he has been in, kind of a shooting slump for a while now. And I think that he is dealing with a shoulder injury, like that is affecting his shot a little bit, but he also just does seem to be going through some sort of anguish mentally, that you can see and you can feel and you can read in his body language on the court. So I do think that one of the big priorities down the stretch in these last 7 games is to try and get Naz into some kind of a rhythm, try to get him feeling good about his game, trying to get him feeling good about everything, where he fits in and all of that stuff. Because when Naz is at his best, that is when the Wolves are rolling. He is flashy, he is dynamic, he is engaged on the glass and on defense, and the highlights that he can produce on the fly offensively, get the crowd jumping as much as anybody. And so I don't know what it is exactly that has been bothering Naz, because he has a long-term contract. He wasn't getting traded. Like he hasn't had to deal with a lot of that drama, but these guys are humans and we all go through things. And so he's going through something right now that I think that they got to try to help him through and get him back refocused. And maybe the last 8-9 minutes of his stint in Dallas kind of helps get him going that way. He was in the locker room in Dallas, smiling and laughing with his teammates and stuff. So maybe he is turning a little corner. But we'll see. They need to get him rolling though, because I was concerned watching him in that first half, first 3 quarters. Just come on, Naz, like what's going on here?
Yeah, he also got tossed out against the Rockets and just looked frustrated that entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to a former Gopher here in the last segment of the show. First, we want to thank 2 more of our local sponsors, starting with Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. We've been telling you about them for years now, and I love saying we've been telling you about them for years because it tells you that we've been in a partnership with Princeton's Liquors, with a lot of our sponsors for a long time, because we trust them, they trust us, they are part of this community. They have been in the liquor selling business for decades and decades in Maple Grove. Great craft beer, great bourbon selection, but they have wine, they have spirits, they have THC seltzers and gummies. They have anything that you need for unwinding on a weeknight, watching the Wolves, getting ready for a weekend and having some friends over. Go to Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you. They will take care of you because they've been taking care of people in this community for literally decades, and they stay open because they have a great product, because they treat people well, and because they support those around us. So go to Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove.
Now we want to thank sglambchops.com, and John and I both got some cool SG Lamb Chops gear at the Head Flyer show. I wore the t-shirt on the show. I've been wearing, but my favorite item I got was really thick, sturdy, yet really comfortable sweatpants with the Lamb Chops logo on them, with zippers in the front pockets and back pockets. So they're not only great couch sweats, they're sweats I could wear around. I live in the North Loop. I could wear around Minneapolis and be very comfortable. Just great stuff.
Great stuff. Go to sglambchops.com. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. And like Jim said, you can wear them out and about in the North Loop. No one will look at you sideways. They will say, dang, that looks really good. They are super comfortable clothes. I got a hoodie. I got a t-shirt, got a sweater as well that I can wear to games and look good and look stylish, but also, it's appropriate for business wear as well. And so they have all sorts of different things that you can wear to all sorts of different events and or just lounging around the house. It is super high quality, really well made, and it looks really good as well. So go to sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
And sglambchops.com also sponsors the Twitter question we'll get to at the end of this show. What a year for JB Bickerstaff.
He's done a great job, man, in Detroit. He should be in the Coach of the Year, kind of running. One of the more impressive things that they've done is win and have success without Cade Cunningham. While he's been out, they just keep rolling, including a very decisive victory at Target Center last weekend. What has happened with JB is that he has really kind of reinstilled a toughness, a grit, a no back down mentality that fits well with those Pistons. We always think about the bad boy Pistons of those days, and JB has embraced that sort of hard nosed, kind of ethos, and they just have a no back down mentality, which is really cool to watch. Maybe not the most talented from top to bottom, but they will put the brass knuckles on and fight you for 48 minutes and fight you for another 5 minutes if it goes to overtime. And so they just keep winning games too. They're number one in the East. I think everyone keeps waiting for them to stumble, but they don't. And so they're going to go into the Eastern Conference playoffs as probably a slightly underdogs. Of people will say, well, Boston's better. Maybe it's New York, maybe it's Cleveland or something like that. But they will use that chip on their shoulder the whole way through. And I'm really excited to see what they do in the playoffs. JB is a great dude, really good coach, has been in this league a long time, and has really helped develop some great players. And so he's starting to get some shine that he has long deserved. It's really cool to see.
Let's put a local spin on the increasingly interesting MVP discussion. Yeah, Wemby out there trash talking OKC and saying I should be the MVP because I play defense. You have Shea still playing incredible basketball for the best team in basketball. You have Luka absolutely going off right now. And guess what? The Wolves are going to face one of these guys here probably pretty soon. So from the Timberwolves perspective, which is the MVP candidate they'd least like to see?
Yeah, I these conversations are always important, but then they're always looked at in the wrong way, I think, because I might say that Shea is the one who seems to have the most Wolves-proof game. No matter what they throw at him, he just always seems to do well. And if I say that, there's going to be Spurs fans or Lakers fans that think that I'm saying that Wemby is terrible and Luka is trash, and like they're going to dispatch any of them. And I don't necessarily believe that's the case with any of them. They're three incredible players in the deepest talent pool that the league has seen perhaps ever, but certainly in a very, very long time. And these three guys are right at the top of MVP. They're amazing. It's going to be unbelievable. I am all of a sudden very concerned about a 3-6 matchup with the Lakers, the way that Luka is playing, the way that that whole group seems to be coming together. Earlier in this season, quite frankly, I was like, yes, give us the Lakers. That will be another quick series because they don't have the athletes to match with the Timberwolves. I still absolutely think the Wolves can beat the Lakers in a series, but I think it will be much, much more difficult than last year's 4-1 series was with how well Luka's playing, with Austin Reeves playing great, with the defense clicking in with Marcus Smart. Like, that's a very, really tough team, and they're playing incredible basketball. Wemby, like, if you don't beat him this year, you may not beat him ever. So, I think that there is a hope amongst the rest of the league that they're 1 year away, and that every, major team that's won championships has had to lose in the playoffs first before they start. It doesn't mean that the Spurs have to do it, because, I mean, this guy there's no answers for what he can do. And so in a 7-game series, can you hold that guy down 4 times? I don't know. I really do think the only hope that they have is, you know what? He's a little bit young. His supporting cast is really young. Maybe they just need to be beaten one time, and then next year they come back guns blazing. I'm not sure. But Shea, at this point, just seems almost inevitable. And, even when the Wolves have great perimeter defenders, the OKC system runs on so smoothly that it doesn't matter. Like, they almost had Shea knocked down the last time they played, and he couldn't make a shot in the first 3 quarters. He was really struggling in a way that he almost never does. And then in the fourth quarter, turns it on, gets past 20 points, and they run away with it. And so I think that team and that player is just the hardest thing right now to deal with. But the whole gauntlet is going to be incredible to try to navigate. The Timberwolves absolutely can do it, but this is going to be a road and a half ahead of them.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get to our Twitter question to wrap up this show. Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com. Definitely check them out.
Yeah, let me find it here. Let's see if I can find who said it.
I'll also say, please check out the Viking Update Show. Jon Krawczynski and I both have been around the Vikings for decades. We do the Viking show, Update Show as well. We also have Jeff Diamond on the Vikings, former Vikings general manager. Alec Lewis from The Athletic does the Vikings show and does a lot of them and does a great job. Sometimes he will join us on this show as well.
Yeah, here it is from AML. How is the rebrand coming? Do you know, are the leaked logo pictures in the ballpark? Thank you. And Wolves fans, and I am right with you. Like, I love talking about uniforms and rebrand and all this stuff, because I think the Wolves are in desperate need of it. And I know that ownership believes that as well. And so I think a rebrand is in the works. There were some photos that leaked online last week sometime, that I believe are very much in the ballpark of what we will see. And kind of like the gist of it is that it's a return to mostly to the blue and green motif of the original uniforms, which is awesome. I think there's going to be a black uniform. I think there was some reporting from one of the uniform kind of speculators out there that is the case. And so I don't know what I don't know about it is some of the pictures that leaked. The logo itself looks very similar to the one that they have right now, just kind of different colors and maybe a few tweaks to it. I don't know if there's going to be a larger kind of main logo unveiling that is different, what they do, but I do think that the color schemes that you did see in those photos are going to be very similar to what is unveiled, and I think it will be welcomed with open arms to go back to the really classic, blue, green, white, and then have a black kind of alternate uniform as well. The ownership has heard loud and clear fan complaints about the just uninspired kind of current kits that they have. And they see also that any throwback uniform, the trees this year, the classics from a year ago, the Prince jerseys, those things sell out just like wildfire. And I think part of that is nostalgia, but part of that is sort of a statement that the current main primary uniforms that they have just don't do it for fans. And so ownership quickly moved to kind of start that going, and we will see something unveiled. My guess is sometime later this summer leading into next season, with kind of the the trees will I think play a role in it, and the old colors will play a role in it as well, which is going to be very cool to see.
Great stuff, Jon. Really enjoyed the live show with you and all the fans. Thanks for everything. Please check out the Viking Update show as well with Jon, and we will talk to you next week.